Walt Frazier epitomized New York City cool with his smooth game and an off-court style that earned him the legendary nickname Clyde. As a player, he made the steal an art form and was the floor leader for both Knicks championship teams of the early 1970s.
Beautiful pass from Frazier. Cuts to his left, now stops and jumps. Yes!
I love playing with Walt, and Walt and I, we started doing yoga together with the Knicks, and everybody was looking at us like, boy, those Southern guys are weird. But Walt was just a tremendous player and just beautiful to watch because he played fast but never in a hurry. And that was the beauty of his style of play in his game.
Walt Frazier was drafted in the same class as I was back in 1967. I think Walt was in the top 5. I was picked number 7 in the draft. So he and I had this little competitive rivalry. It didn't take long for me to realize and for the league to realize that, Walt Frazier was a special player and was going to be on his way to not only a Hall of Fame career, but a dominant career in New York. His style of play was fun to watch, back in the early 70s.
But here's a guy, you talk about somebody with flair. New York loved this guy because he belonged in New York, there's no question about it. Just a really outstanding all-around player who didn't get his due, didn't get the credit. But in New York, they loved him. And I think around the league, a lot of people were really looking to see him after a game because of he was a haberdasher. And so he would wear some stuff that nobody else would wear. And people came to see him play, but people also came to see what he was going to have on, how he was dressed for a particular game.
Clyde always had a style to his game. He wanted to show you his ability to score, but he also wanted to show you his outstanding passing and his ability to play the passing lanes. He wanted to show you every single thing when he played.
Stolen by Frazier.
Again, Frazier took it away. Frazier again did it. Isn't that something?
If you knew him back then, Clyde was always a classy, flashy dresser. He'd come up with stuff that you'd be like, oh my God, what he got on now? But he was always one of those guys. The myth was, Bonnie and Clyde. Well, he was Clyde, okay, with the big hat, fur coat, the machines that he used to drive and stuff like that, but he was always classy.
I think he had the best game I ever seen, the championship game with the Lakers.
West across the midcourt, loses to Frazier, drives ahead of the field, down the lane, layup is good.
In that game, he had 36 points, double-figure rebounds against, I thought, the best defensive guard in the game, Jerry West. It was the best game I've ever seen a guy play under high pressure, and they beat the Lakers for the championship.
Dressed to impress. Never stressed Walt Clyde Frazier. Check out the numbers. 36 points, 19 assists, 7 rebounds in that Game 7, a champion with the New York Knicks.
And Walt Frazier really epitomized team. If you think about those great Knicks teams, I've always said I felt like that was the best passing team I had ever seen to this day because all 5 guys are terrific at not just scoring it, but making the plays. And they were complete, and it was really led by him. And you mentioned that incredible Game 7 performance. It harkens me back to what Magic did that year when Kareem was out with the ankle. He went to Philly. Very similar dynamic because people forget that Willis Reed only played the first couple minutes of that game. And it was about what Walt Frazier was able to do and how impressive he was and dominant he was in that stretch for them to win that championship.
But Madison Avenue, Park Avenue, Broadway, he's that as well, his style on the court and off the court.
Yeah, and the thing about Walt Frazier as well is he kind of embodied New York. He was a larger-than-life personality. The clothes, the way I remember Jet Magazine when he had the big circle bed and he had the mirror all over the ceiling of his room and he was larger than life. And I grew up as a kid, a big Knicks fan. He and then obviously later on when Earl the Pearl came there and DeBusschere and that whole crew and Bradley and Reed and so just to see the career he had because he was the quintessential lead guard. He could make the big shot or he could also make the big play defensively for you. It gets lost how dominant of a defender he was. I think a 6-time All-NBA defender, also 6 or 7-time All-NBA performer. He was as good as it got. And remember, that was in an era where you didn't have guys playing 15, 16, 17 years at a high level. So he got a lot in what we look at now and we think of as a truncated career.
Yeah, as a former New York Knicks guard, we believe everything you just said. GA on Clyde.
Walt Clyde Frazier, I remember him from high school because one of my teammates on my high school team played with him in college, and he used to talk about him all the time. So when we got into the league, I was kind of familiar with him, but obviously hadn't met him. So our first encounter, actually, I think I was starting for the Baltimore Bullets, and he was coming off the bench with the Knicks, and I didn't know what to say to him because I had heard so much about him. It was a kind of a strange encounter, but as soon as we got to play against each other, I knew that it was going to be a tough scenario because, he was that type of player. He was going to be coming at me, and I was going to be coming at him. So it was kind of a joy. That's one of the things that I always kind of regretted, going to the Knicks, is that I wasn't going to be able to play against Clyde anymore.